Welcome to episode 2 of Let's Talk, where we take your opinions and your hot takes and your questions, and we talk about them, and we discuss them. Welcome to Blackbar. Justin on the Discord asks, how do you decide if I am buying it to buy it, or if the purchase will add value to the ministry? I think that the easiest rule of thumb is I want you to say out loud why you're buying something, right? Give me the what you believe to be the ministry reason why purchasing something is a good idea or actually accomplishes a goal of your church. And then I want you to look at that and think, would my senior pastor agree that what I have spoken is an actual goal of the church and that this is a good way to invest our resources to make it happen? It's definitely easy to get caught up in the gear envy. Go watch out our last video where we talk about how production value can be an idol. But for the most part, as long as you're trying to look at the purchases and how you're investing your budget in a problem-solving perspective of what are the goals, what are the issues that we're running into as a church, not just as a department, but as a church, and how can I use tech to solve that problem, I think you're already in the right frame of mind to not be wasting money on things your church doesn't need. John Mark Clark asks, vertical video versus horizontal video in 2021. I'd say neither. I want diagonal video. Nick, make this diagonal. This is the new wave. This is where we're going. Get on the be here or be square or vertical or something else. Troy on the Discord asks about upcoming trends I see in video and graphics production, both in the church and outside, that we should keep an eye on and possibly use for inspiration. I've seen a ton of what I would call Web 1.0 retro recently, not only in visual aesthetics of things like pixel art and whatever, but also in almost intentionally cheap rotating GIFs you would see in old. Nick, you could put a bunch of stuff here, right? Examples.
Sure.
You could tell
the banana, that's
peanut butter jelly time, exactly. But in a very modern aesthetic with using modern technology, but the kind of repeating patterns and stuff. I see this a lot on Instagram stickers. I see it in just the aesthetic of designs and branding packages. It's a lot of that going on right now. I don't think it's a bad thing. I am slightly terrified that my childhood is now retro. I'm worried about that, but what am I gonna do? Russell on the Discord asks 4 questions, but we'll take them one at a time. If Microsoft purchases Discord, what could this mean for churches who use the platform?
Okay, and so editing Nick here. You can see I'm in my home office. I want to let you know that in the course of creating this video, the discussion happening between Microsoft and Discord came to a conclusion, and right now it doesn't look like Microsoft is going to acquire Discord. That being said, we thought that what Caleb talks about in the video here is it was good enough and relevant enough still to continue with the conversation. So we're going to include the entire discussion. Just know that when he mentions if they acquire, it's not happening, and just be aware of it. All right, now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
When I first heard about Microsoft acquiring Discord, I have to say I was immediately worried because Microsoft has 2 different platforms that I would say are relatively similar in function to Discord, being Teams and Skype. And I've had to use both of those, and they're awful. They're absolutely terrible. However, I think Discord does have a lot of potential. If they use Discord as sort of Microsoft entry into the world of social media and kind of give it a cash injection and focus on making it more community oriented and user friendly, I think that'd be a really good thing, as long as they keep some of the customizable elements to it. If they make it more like a community based platform for subculture, whatever, and not focus so much on gaming, I think it'd be good. I think it'd especially be good for churches who are interested in finding a place online where their subculture and their group, their congregation can meet and talk. I think it's perfect for that. But if Microsoft buys it and then turns it into basically Xbox Live 2.0 and just a way for people playing video games to chat with each other, which admittedly was what Discord was originally meant for, I think there'd be a huge waste of potential. So I don't think they're going to do that because I don't think Bill Gates is an idiot. But I'd say generally I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic for the future of Discord, and we as Blackbar will continue to focus on it and continue to develop for it into the future, because I think it's going to be a worthwhile investment. Russell then goes on to ask a couple unrelated questions, basically around the point of best practices for creatives to have a healthy work-life balances, especially when it comes to social media notifications, comments, especially if you're running multiple pages or your church's page and you've got a lot of people going. If someone has a good answer to this question, I would be very thankful to be aware of it, because it's something that I'm not very good at. In addition to running Blackbar stuff, we run our church's social media accounts, and there are hundreds of people interacting with it every single day. It can be overwhelming for sure. I know for us, I have the luxury of a team in which we can delegate some of that work out so that different people are watching the accounts on different days at different times when other people are unavailable. I would suggest for you and for anybody who is struggling with keeping up on that capacity, because I do think it's important to take time off, is to build volunteers up that can be helping watching. They don't necessarily need to be content creators. They don't need to be posting things, but at least be monitoring stuff, making sure you're not getting trolls. I think that kind of thing can be trained relatively easily as long as you have a group of people that you trust to handle it. On Instagram, AXC Photo asks, if you have to be a camera, which one and why? I'm assuming he meant buy a camera. But that's not what he asked. If I had to be a camera, I've never thought about that before. I mean, like, the first instinct is like, go like super expensive, right? Like, I'm gonna be a Red Epic, right? And like all of my accessories are gonna be $15,000 just cause why not, if I get to pick? Or like an Airy or something just stupid. I don't know enough about like $100,000 cameras for it to matter. You know what I would wanna be? I would wanna be like a 5D Mark II. Like, I want to be good at everything. I don't want to be like absolutely like bomb at just like one thing. And now I want to be kind of like, you could use it for photos. You can use it for video. You can kind of like move around with it.
Why not a Mark III?
Why not a Mark IV?
Yes, exactly.
Because, I don't know, you get to pick your own camera. This is what I want to be. I'm the one answering the questions. I'm going to be a Mark II. That's not what you asked for, but that's what I'm going to give you. Simon Saucy on Instagram has a hot take for us, first one of the day. To have a successful online ministry, you need to be constantly changing and adapting. Maybe. Relatively speaking, the church is new to like the online ministry world, so I'm trying to think of like examples of successful content creators, influencers in the online space in general that are successful. So like YouTubers, what's a non-controversial YouTuber? Vsauce, right? Science isn't controversial with Christians. Vsauce, relatively speaking, has been kind of making the same videos since he started. Like, the production value has increased, and he's had a couple offshoots of different series and stuff, like his YouTube Red stuff he was doing, and which is one of the best YouTube Red series that I've seen. For the most part, like, when you go to Vsauce, you know what you're getting with Vsauce. He has a very specific style and aesthetic and video that has made him successful, that he's gotten millions of subscribers from. Is he always constantly adapting and changing? Maybe, but in like subtle ways and more business ways, in the way that he's supporting the channel and whatnot. I think if you can develop a brand for yourself that is providing a unique service or a unique experience that isn't something that's already been done 1,000, 100,000 times, like in most churches, I think that you don't have to be constantly adapting and changing, because that's the only place I can get that sort of service, that sort of experience, and you're the one providing it. JD on our Discord asks, now that streaming is a big part of most churches, should we modify the order of Sunday service? Will it be necessary to keep everyone in person and online engaged? So personally, I think that everything short of scripture needs to be up for debate when it comes to, like, there's nothing particularly sacred about the format of church services that we've been doing for, the past 100 years at least. First of all, I would say yes. I think that we do need to be reconsidering not only the order of the elements of the service, but maybe even how those elements are presented, and do we even want to put those into a typical Sunday morning experience. Here's what might be a helpful thought experiment for every church out there. I want you to lay out your order of service, go to Planning Center, print off that sucker, slap it right there. I want you to go through the list, and I want you to tell me, or don't tell me, you can just write it down. Write down what is the goal of that chunk of the service. What is the goals of the announcement section? What is the goal of the second set of worship? What is the goal of the transition video? What is the goal of the sermon? And work your way all the way through those things. And then I want you to look at both your in-person service, and I want you to look at your online ministry and say, all right, is this the best way that I could be achieving this goal during a Sunday morning service, or even just online in general? There might be tools that we have access to now, given our online medium, that could do some of those goals better for your church and your congregation, given the context that you have. Does it make sense that some of those are now reordered? Maybe. Probably. We live in an online video ecosystem where pushing your video over 15 minutes usually is a death sentence. So having services that are 45 minutes to an hour, we're already in an uphill battle. Mixing up the order of your service to make it more kinetic or breaking it up more might not be a bad idea. But like I've said a million times before, there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all solution. Anybody who tells you otherwise is lying to you or trying to sell you something. So what's important for your church and what's going to work for your church is going to be very different that works for my church. But as long as you're following that process and thinking honestly about the elements of your service, I think you can come up with a solution that's going to work for you. Squintcomb 1 has a great name. They also ask, what is a healthy way to explain to pastoral leadership that they aren't, in fact, making new or innovative decisions in regards to media and communication? I feel like I need more context to answer this question fairly. The situation that I'm imagining is you're at a church in which the leadership is making, we'll say, incremental upgrades to their tech or media ministry, and they're super excited about those things, but they're still, relatively speaking, a little bit behind the curve of where maybe the rest of the church is, or especially where the rest of the internet is. And that certainly can be a frustrating place to exist in if you're someone who's aware of where the rest of the world is, and you're kind of stuck back where the rest of your leadership is right now. As someone who is a Enneagram 3-wing 4, change and innovation and excitement is what I live for. I am stuck in the future and in the clouds all the time, and I need people around me to hold my feet to the ground to make sure we get something done every day, right?
Heck yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, but on the same time, I think it's important to make change, to introduce innovations, and to disappoint some people at a rate that they can comprehend. And for some churches and for some congregations and for some leadership, that rate is going to be faster or slower than others. As much as I understand your frustration, I think you might also be starting to follow into a little bit of trap of looking at what all the other churches have that you don't right now, right? And that's certainly a dangerous and potentially toxic place to be. The fact of the matter is you have a church that, although maybe not as moving as fast as you would like, is excited about innovating and moving forward in the small ways that they can. If you can find a way to communicate to your leadership, not necessarily saying that you haven't gone far enough, but wow, what you've done already is so cool and it's moved us forward so many years. Imagine what else we could do now. And continue feeding that creativity, continue feeding that excitement moving forward, again, at a rate that they can understand, at a rate that they can comprehend. The healthy way to handle that situation is really to encourage the push towards innovation rather than reminding them of how far they still have left to go. That being said, if you have more details, if you want to talk about it sometime, hit me up and we can talk about it. I made up half of that just because I need more information, so let me know. Eternal asks, what are some ways to balance traditional church decor with contemporary design updates? What a fascinating question that I have very little to no experience with. I work in the media marketing world. Tech and stage design is handled by an entirely different department, at least at my church. So it's not something I have a lot of experience with. But I have been around for a lot of our upgrades, and I'm good friends with the people who make those upgrades. I think one thing that I would advise you is similar to a question we answered earlier, is I want you to sit in your sanctuary, like smack dab in the middle. I want you to look around and try to put in as concretely as you can, look at the architecture, look at what you have, and say, what is this saying? What does this communicate about my church? And as long as the new things you introduce communicate the same thing, then the contrast of old and new won't feel forced. It'll feel cohesive because the design intent behind both of the design languages are consistent. I'd also say don't be afraid of holding on to some of the more traditional elements that you have, unless they're super ugly. I guess if they're super ugly, you get rid of them. But there's certainly merit to some of that tradition. Some of it, like you got old stained glass windows, got cool art hanging around, right? There's some character, there's some uniqueness that comes with those elements that is hard to find a lot in churches these days. So from a complete amateur at stage design, that's what I would say. There are some people on our Discord that can answer this question better than I could, but I did my best. The last question that I have that I received literally in the middle of filming this video right now is from Keith Driver. If there would be a Blackbar Community Day event, what would it be? We've definitely talked about having stuff like that before, about big hangouts in the Discord, either talking about a certain topic or kind of breaking people up into meeting other people who serve in similar capacities. We're definitely open to the conversation. I guess maybe we'll leave it down into the comments below. What would you want to see? Would you find value in meeting other people who are involved in the same kind of ministry that you are? Or would you want to have a giant conversation about some particular topic and we can all brainstorm together? Maybe a mix of both. Let's hear your ideas. I'm open. I'm definitely open. This has been another episode of Let's Talk, episode 2. We're gonna continue doing more of these, so make sure to drop down in the comments a question you would like answered next time, an opinion, a hot take you want me to respond to, and I'll definitely be checking that out in the next time we film one of these. Thanks for watching. I'm uncomfortable.
Get off the stage.
Okay. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Blackbar. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the Blackbar podcast, released every single week, where we go more into depth into the topics we talk about in these videos. In addition, if you would like to join the Blackbar volunteer team and help make content or help other struggling churches on our Discord, make sure to check out the link in the description below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.